everybody, welcome to Love and Reload, the voice of the relocation industry. I am your host, Ben Cross, and I'm so blessed and honored to be here with Christian Ter-Nedden. Christian, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm fantastic. It's a phenomenal Tuesday. It's Taco Tuesday across the nation.
That's right.
All right. I love when it's a food first day of the week. Things are good here. Where in the world are you, Christian?
I'm in Orange County, California. The way I explain it is I can hear the Disneyland fireworks from my backyard at night, which is
Nice. The OC.
Yeah, the real OC.
Yeah, now is the OC all it's cracked up to be? I mean, we do an overrated, underrated segment on this show, later on, but I'm going to just dabble into it. Just people love that's part of it. Get in the comments, by the way. Hit that like button. Let us know who you are, where you are. Christians in the OC. Is the OC overrated or underrated?
Depends on how rich you are, I guess. No, nature is beautiful, weather is great, but it is, as I'm sure everybody knows, since this is a mobility broadcast, very expensive to live here.
Yeah. I remember I've been to the OC a few times, Orange County, California, for those of you who do not know. And I was struck by the quality of the weather. It's not only nice, but there's a quality to the niceness where, the sun is just a little bit more moderate and not as harsh as, a Texas. And you have this kind of gentle ocean breeze floating through the, air just from the proximity, to the water. I do enjoy it there.
I'm not rich enough for the gentle ocean breeze. Hey, Olivia, but it's still gentle enough. It's let's say middle class gentle.
Let's turn on a fan and call it good. All right.
That's
Olivia
right.
checking in from Canada. What's up? Jana Chazanowski checking in from Brazil. We got 2 countries already represented. Glomo and Dallas. There's 3 countries. Very cool. People are checking in. This is awesome.
I'm 3 countries myself.
Now Christian Ter-Nedden, this doesn't sound like a California name.
Nope.
Where are you from originally, Christian?
So the name, first of all, is northwestern German. That's on my dad's side. And I was born in Marburg an der Lahn in Germany, which is about an hour northeast of Frankfurt.
Okay.
And moved to Switzerland when I was 9. So if we ever talk about the Smurfs, that's where that comes in. And then grew up in Switzerland, moved to California in 2000.
Okay. All right. I want to talk about all this. I want to talk about your global mobility journey. I want to talk about, obviously you're multicultural. You talked about the Smurf. Shout out to Nicole, by the way,
Hey,
in the
Nicole.
house. Love Nicole here on the show. Jillian Guzda. What's up, Jilly?
Hello.
Hit that like button, y'all. Get in the comments here. We're talking Smurfs. We're talking global mobility. We're talking the OC. Okay, we're going to touch all the bases today. I got to know about these Smurfs, though. I understand that you have a bit of a fascination with Smurfs. Where does that come from?
Okay, so the Smurfs, when I grew up in Germany in the 70s, the Smurfs were all the rage, and people would collect Smurfs. And I hope everybody knows what Smurfs are. They're these little blue figures. They were invented in Belgium, just like French fries.
Oh, I didn't know that.
50s, yeah.
Okay.
And in the 70s, they were super popular in Germany, and kids would collect these Smurf figurines. Well, my brothers and I had a collection together, and we also had a Smurf house, which looked like a mushroom. And when we moved from Germany to Switzerland, that collection disappeared, and it's never been seen again. And I think it's with all the lost socks that got lost in the laundry during my lifetime somewhere.
Who out there watched the Smurfs growing up? I used to watch the Smurfs a lot growing up when I was a kid. And I remember, it didn't have a lot of channels growing up. And the Smurfs were one of my favorite kind of Saturday morning kind of cartoons. I was really into it. The Smurfs have made a bit of a comeback recently. They got big movie deals. I mean, they're everywhere now.
Right. So I would love to show my kids my old Smurfs, but I can't.
Now, what do you think? Have you ever put an estimate on what you think that collection would be valued at today?
I think it would be about $4.57, but I might be wrong.
You are the transferee, the assignee that we've all wished we could have. Okay, when there's a claim, they don't have some outlandish figure for their priceless, irreplaceable Smurf collection.
Yeah, when we moved from Switzerland to California, the only claim I had was
Oh, I lost you a little bit, Christian.
we had an IKEA table, and that was the only claim we had. It was
Oh,
$400, and we called it a day.
So who moved you when you lost your Smurfs? Who was the moving company?
The moving company with the Smurfs was a local in the village where I moved to company. I have no idea whether they're still in business, but they were, small mom and pop shop.
I got people over there. We could probably get to the bottom of those missing
I might be
Smurfs.
able to.
Yeah, I'll make a couple calls.
It would be definitely a cold case because that was 44 years ago.
Imagine we unbox those Smurfs. Imagine after like 40-something years, we uncover like this box, like on
Dust.
Antique Roadshow, and there's like a carton, and they open it.
Right.
It's like, oh, it still has the transferee's name on it. A wee Christian Ter-Nedden on this box, and they open it up, and it's a bunch of Smurfs.
Complicated with a hyphen in it, yeah. So
Nicole, what's up, there? Nicole watched the Smurfs growing up. What was your favorite Smurf? Did you have a favorite one, Christian?
It was the Papa Smurf, the one with the white beard and the red.
Sure.
Just because he had a red hat, nobody else did, so he was easy to find. Plus, he was mine. My brothers didn't have him, so that was good. That was a big advantage when we played Smurfs.
So I got to ask. Okay, we're gonna flash forward from the Smurfs here. Okay, let's get into global mobility, but first, from your own experiences, what was it like? What do you recall moving over to the States?
So, to the States?
Yeah.
Okay, so to the States, it was an interesting experience because my then girlfriend, now wife of 21 years, is from Orange County. So we moved.
Shout out to the ex-girlfriends out there, by the way. Shout out. No, current. To the wives.
Let's not go there.
Sometimes I call my wife my ex-girlfriend because she got promoted.
Okay.
She got promoted.
Okay.
It's okay. It's all right.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fair. Anyway, so we moved to California because she wanted to be closer to her family. We both wanted to get out of Switzerland, and I had won a green card in the diversity program. And when you win a green card, what that means is that you have to go. You can't just say, oh, maybe I'm going to move, maybe not. Let's buy a vacation home in Florida. It doesn't work that way. It means you want to live in the United States sooner rather than later. So what that meant for us, that within 9 months of me winning the green card, we had to go. We got a 20-foot container and parked it in front of my girlfriend's apartment and blocked all the parking spaces of the restaurant across the street.
You were that guy. You were the guy blocking the parking spots.
Yeah, in Zurich. And and then we moved. And I think I mentioned that we brought our rabbit. So our rabbit was trying to chew through the cardboard box somewhere over Iceland.
So hold on a second. From two things I'm a bit bewildered by. Get in the comments, by the way. Let us know if you've ever done an international move. Really curious to hear from folks out there. But let me ask you this. One, it sounds like, did you pack this container yourself?
No. We moved with a well-known moving company.
Okay, because that was one thing. Because I had always heard that you really can't do a do-it-yourself containerized move internationally. Is that still the case, to your knowledge?
To my knowledge, yeah. And I mean, you have considerations like customs, for instance, in our case, and that still hurts. 24 years later, we had to pay $800 for a customs inspection because they went through every single box. They put a green sticky tape on it that says inspected by U.S. Customs. And needless to say, they didn't find the Smurfs either.
Did they? But tell me about the rabbit, though. You mentioned did the rabbit go in the shipment?
No. Oh, please, no. The rabbit lived a long, happy rabbit life in California. No, the rabbit was with us on the plane, and Swissair, at the time that still existed, made us buy a cardboard box, which, if you know rabbits, is not a good idea. So
eat that for dinner, yeah.
Figure out what to do. We went through the vet. We got half a cat tranquilizer, fed him the cat tranquilizer, and as he was trying to chew through the box somewhere over Iceland, it kicked in. He was asleep, and then somewhere over Colorado, they gave him a bit of salad. They gave him leftover salad, which he enjoyed.
This guy first class over here. He's getting
Oh,
fed. He's getting in-flight meals.
yeah. I mean, it was a $400 at the time rabbit ticket. So yeah. And then we went through customs, and U.S. Customs said, "You know anything about rabbits?" Nah, let him through. So there we were with the rabbit, and the rabbit lived to be 12, which is very old for a rabbit. And he was very grumpy when he was young and when he was old.
I can't even with this story. The rabbit with the box and the thing, and then you talking about the girlfriend. I gave a rabbit to a girl one time in college. I gave a rabbit to a girl in college one time.
Let me think. That probably backfired.
It didn't front fire. I'll tell you that. It didn't work out well. Yeah, no. Yeah, that relationship was not long lived. The rabbit definitely outlived me in that situation, which is fine. It was for the best. Honestly, it was a good trade. So the rabbit came to the U.S. You spent $400 on the rabbit ticket back in the day. How much was the rabbit? How much did the rabbit cost? Just out of curiosity.
To buy the rabbit?
Yeah.
That's another interesting story. I'm not making this up. He was clearance because he was old.
It was old when you bought it.
He was old, too old to be very young and cute. So he was on clearance from the pet store near Zurich Airport.
So did you buy him on the way to?
No. We had him for a while.
Oh, okay. I thought it was like an impulse purchase.
No.
It's like a Kit Kat and a rabbit.
We're not that crazy, no.
Okay, get in the comments if you ever owned a rabbit. They are interesting creatures.
They are. They ate all our modem cords, and we couldn't apply for jobs because they had eaten them through our internet. For those of us old enough to remember those days.
That's a costly rabbit. I was actually just talking about dial-up internet to my team, and they didn't remember it. They're just like, "What are you talking about?"
You know what you do in that situation? You learn where to get a modem cord from the 99-cent store.
I feel like there's a lot of clearance shopping in your background. I feel like you have some really good insights here about how to shop.
Yeah, we had to, because when we arrived here, being in California, we didn't have jobs. We didn't have any job prospects. We had my wife's family who was very supportive, and we had some savings, but we didn't even know where exactly we should live. So we lived with my mother-in-law until we had jobs and knew that we would move to Irvine, and that's what we did. But yeah, the first years were kind of rough, and 9/11 happened. I sold cars and so on. So.
All right, we got to talk about this. I'm really curious about the you sold cars. But now we've talked about your personal global mobility journey.
Mm-hmm.
We talk in this industry about falling into this business so often. How did you fall into mobility as an occupation?
Okay, so there were kind of two phases. Phase number one was in Zurich. While I was finishing my degree, I worked as a advanced business German teacher, which is how I met my wife. She was in my class. That was expats who worked for the banks, the insurance companies, what you would expect, Zurich being a center for banking and UBS, for instance, at the time. But I didn't know the mobility industry existed. And then in 2004, I answered an ad on Monster.com. Turns out it was for Cardis as a mobility consultant. And the lady who interviewed me, who became my manager, was a lady from Annecy on the French side of Lake Geneva. So we immediately had rapport and got along and had similar experiences moving to California. And that's when it started 20 years ago.
What did you think a global mobility consultant or relocation consultant, I'm not sure what the term was at the time. What did you think that job was? Was it what you thought it was?
Yes, because and the reason why I was able to determine that was because I had moved, and I had moved with a moving company. Actually, that was the third time. There was the time as a kid with the Smurfs, but in between I'd lived in England and I moved with a moving company as a kind of a part load. I did hire a moving company for that. So I knew how that worked, and I knew that there was a lot to coordinate, and I knew what the requirements were when you arrived, right? You needed temporary housing. Well, in my case, that was my mother-in-law, but it was temporary housing.
Yeah.
You needed to find a job. You needed to figure out what the traffic patterns were like. how long your commute would be, that kind of thing, where you would hire a destination service provider for. We had to figure this out ourselves because my wife, while she is from California, from Orange County, had lived in Switzerland for 6 years.
Okay.
A lot had changed. She had no credit to speak of. I had no credit anyway. So the whole credit history issue was a big deal.
Yeah, I want to talk about that for a minute because, and I'm loving what you're saying because you actually have real world examples of what it's like to be an expat, right? And I think, that was a big aha moment for me when I was talking to somebody that works with expats on the finance side. I guess I just didn't know that when you come over here, you have no credit.
That's right.
What is that like, and what is that process like to repair that or to fix that, to get credit?
Sure. So it's bewildering, okay? Particularly if you come from Switzerland, where credit cards are it's like American Express, they're to be paid off every month. Otherwise it's a loan, and it's kind of, even today, it's not something you're proud of. So, first thing we needed one of the first things was cell phones, because you can't really look for a job if you don't have one.
Right.
So my mother-in-law had to co-sign for a cell phone plan. And to this day, she's on it. We're loyal people. And then what you do is you apply for a gas card. I've told many transferee that you apply for a gas card and then you get rejected.
Like a fuel card, like that, is that the easiest thing to get? It's like a fuel card. Okay.
Yes, because you can't really use it for too much else, and it's in my case I think it was like $200, but you get rejected. You try again, you get rejected again. Eventually, you get one. You also go and get a secured credit card, which is backed by a certificate of deposit. Buy that from a bank. Mine was $500. If I paid off the credit card every month, then they would eventually give me the $500 back, and it would work just like a regular credit card.
How long was that secured for? Was it 6 months or a year?
It ended up being a year.
A year. So basically what you're doing is giving them $500 and then asking for it back, and then showing that you're paying for the privilege to borrow.
Collateral, right? They have the $500 as a collateral.
So it's really zero risk. It's just to watch you jump up and down and touch your nose at the same time.
That's right. But the point of it is that this goes into your credit file, and you're paying it back every month like a good person, right? And then eventually they say, all right, now we can trust you with the $500 limit that you have. So
we trusted you with your 500. Now we can trust you with our 500 for a while.
That's exactly it. So I told transferees to do that, definitely. The other thing that happened is one day my wife got a call from some telemarketer whether she wanted a UCLA credit card. She went to UCLA. And she's like, okay, sure, if you're offering. So I was able to, so I had no credit, right? So I was able to also be on her credit cards until I was able to establish my own credit. Mm-hmm. And it takes a long time. It took probably about 5-6 years to really have decent, credit, high score and all that.
Right.
Now it's not a problem anymore, but it is something that, just like you, a lot of people moving into the United States don't know about. They don't get it. They go, oh, I'm a professional. Make 6 figures. Blah, doesn't matter. Does not matter, because you have not bad credit. You have no credit.
You have no credit.
You're unknown.
Yeah, that is bewildering, right? You could be a doctor or a professional, or doctor's even worse, because you start over as a doctor over there and you come over here and you're not a doctor anymore. Automatically, you come to the States, you're not even a doctor. You got to requalify. It is bewildering. Bewildering is a great word for it.
Well, so now if you're in the mobility industry, right, you work with a relocation company, or you know better than what we did at the time, there are solutions. There are international banks that can help overcome this. There's, as I'm sure you know, there's car companies that can get you into a car, into a lease. We didn't know any of that at the time, or it didn't exist.
How did you find a car? You said you sold cars at one point. Yeah. How did you get into that?
So how did I get one? Well, my wife got one that we ended up paying off through my father-in-law. I got my wife's grandma's old car, Toyota 93 Camry, which is great, for very little money. So they helped us out with that. Then How I got into selling cars? Well, it was after September 11th. I had just gotten laid off for the second time in a year because all these companies were faltering. And I thought, well, I like cars and they're always looking for people. So let's try that. There's nothing else really out there. And I did it for 7 months, and I was not even bad at it. I was mediocre at it.
That's sometimes the worst, right? You're like good enough to get along,
Exactly.
but not good enough to be successful.
You know,
And
this
it's
Christian guy shows promise. If we just keep training him, eventually he'll get it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you did that for 7 months, and it's a really good question. I get the questions in the comments here. Let us know what your questions are about the expat experience, about Christian's expertise. Really fascinated by this story. I love hearing the first person perspective because when we practice mobility, we practice it theoretically, and we're very good with the theory and the policy and quote unquote. But to talk to an expat that's lived it, it's refreshing, and the stories become kind of real.
So that's my angle. Really, that's what I want to do next. I would like to do something where I always say I want work rather than a job. I would like to do something where I can help with, for instance, policy design or thought leadership or strategies, but always from a very practical angle. The things I'm telling you right now, or what I've learned from my transferees over the 20 years that I've been doing this, to really determine what works and what doesn't, so that when it comes time to implement these policies and these strategies, somebody's thought all this through, somebody with a lot of real life experience.
Yep, I love it. Get in the comments here with your questions for Christian. I'm really curious what you're thinking out there. Nicole's got a good question. Nicole always has good questions. She says, who is technically in charge of telling the expats about how credit works? Is it the corporate client? Is it someone else? Christian?
Yeah.
Let me ask you this two-part question. I'm going to turn this into two-part. Who is present day in charge? Where does that responsibility lie, present day?
Yeah.
And then maybe what is your recommendation?
So I would say in most cases, it would be the destination services provider, assuming you have one. If you don't, then I would answer by saying it will be the transferee. Now, the transferee can get information from websites that talk about how to move into the United States, which of course in 2000, they didn't really exist all that much, right? The web hadn't been invented until 1993. So that didn't really exist. There were books though, and we did read them and so on. But yeah, it would be the destination services provider. Maybe there's a coworker that can help you with this, ideally somebody who's gone through it. But of course, many, many times it was me as a consultant, it was my team. I had people on my team who either had been through it or knew somebody from their family who'd been through exactly the same thing I'm just describing. So it's
Is there a better way to do it than the way that's kind of been done in the past?
I think so. What I've told people is, look, if you want to know more about all of this, and I'm also talking about maybe taxes and how the tax code works, just the basics, take some classes, on personal finance, figure this stuff out, because of course many Americans don't know how credit works either, right? They can't build it. They are in a way similar to an expat. They don't know how to use it. And that's what I learned when I sold cars, how Americans handle money, which, spoiler alert, not well.
Anything that requires self-discipline is a challenge. I'll be honest. Okay, I might be projecting a little bit, but
no, you're dead on right. And how do you shoot yourself in the foot? You're throwing that to the wind, and you're saying, I work hard. I deserve this, even if it costs me 19% interest. I'm going to do it because that's me. And then you're stuck with the SUV you can't afford.
Yeah, but if you lower your life expectancy, planning for the future is not as big a priority.
What do you mean, lower your life expectancy to 25? Yeah, you can do that.
Just fair. Just having fun with American ethos here. I've learned more about this. Are there vendors or things that like you wish partners that you wish you would have had maybe in the process had you known about them that you see maybe around today?
Yes, there are vendors that can help from several different angles, overcome credit history. They can help you build credit. And while they're doing that, they can also educate you. But yeah, we didn't have that. And, it's, I'm sure when you open up your own business, it's a challenge as well. So
It's the
do you have
worst.
any
Oh, it's
things
the
to share
worst.
there?
It's the worst, Christian. Honestly, I'm triggered right now. Yeah, this is such ridiculousness because when I mean, this is like to your point, right? It's like I was, living my whole life, working my way up to the level of being kind of a somewhat successful executive, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Had a nice big house in Michigan. Decided that I wanted to start my own business, take the plunge, move to Texas to be close to my family, a great business environment, all that stuff, right? Sold my house, started my company, moved down there, and I was like, okay, I'm going to buy me one of these, beautiful new big old Texas houses here. And I have so many friends in the mortgage space, and I love them all. They're great people. I mean, up to the president of these companies. And I called them all. And they all were like, yeah, reach out to me. I'll get you a mortgage. None of them could get me a mortgage.
Mm-hmm.
Zero could get me a mortgage. I could not qualify for a mortgage until I had 2 tax returns since being self-employed for an entire year. So what that really meant was I needed 3 years in order to get 2 tax returns of a full year. And so I had to sit on the sidelines for 3 years while I established my income, and I watched the home prices go up 50%. I watched the interest rates go from 2.9% on a mortgage to 7 and change. I watched all sorts of different market changes happen. Even then, when I went to qualify for my income, they would not count certain portions of my income,
Right.
which are all things that are totally bogus. Like if you're an employee, like nobody's going to not count a portion of your income. It's going to
Yeah.
all be counted. The other thing that I found highly ironic was if Ben Cross, the self-employed person, goes for a loan in Texas, their new home state, they're going to be denied immediately. If Glomo writes Ben Cross an offer letter to say, we'd like you to join us as the CEO of our new company at $200,000 a year, that's fine. That's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
I could take that to a mortgage company with a relocation program, of which there's a half dozen that we know offhand, that would write that loan all day. Isn't that
Yeah,
crazy?
isn't that crazy? Trying to explain not exactly that, but some of these considerations to a transferee, their head just explodes because they may come from a system where this all works very differently, or they may not even have owned real estate where they came from. My parents don't own real estate. My brothers happen to own real estate. One of them, my youngest brother, through marriage, he owns a farm. They make wine, farm with a vineyard and corn and carrots and stuff like that. But it's Switzerland is 60% renters, 30% homeowners. So yeah, a lot of people don't own real estate. They come here and they go, maybe I should buy a house, particularly if they're in states where it's cheaper than in California.
Yeah. Yeah, very, very interesting. Nicole Barilli, put your questions in the comments.
Oh, Nicole.
Nicole's doing the most. Appreciate you. Do you, Christian? Thanks. She wants to make sure I don't go answering questions left and right over here. Appreciate that, Nicole. Do you have an area, part of global mobility that you enjoy the most? Tax, culture, moving, etc.
So, and Nicole knows that about me, so it's a loaded question. Of course, it's cross-cultural. It has everything to do that with culture, languages, and language and culture to me are very intermingled. If you look at the stuff I comment on LinkedIn, I have the mobility people, but I also have the German English teachers and the French translators, and because to me it's all kind of one big part that's just endlessly fascinating. It's language. My degree was in linguistics. I've edited books, co-written books, and it's always been about language. And I use this in mobility. I always have. So cultural understanding, language, translation, those would be the points that I like the most.
I'm going to ask you, and I've challenged Nicole with this question, I think, years ago when we were having a conversation. Since you've worked at an RMC level and you kind of understand the full umbrella of services,
Yeah.
I do feel like sometimes when I talk to service providers that exist in kind of a niche or a silo, that they think that their part of it is so much more important than all the other parts, right? You know, it's always funny to hear people, justify their part, right? So understanding the culture and maybe language are kind of your favorite disciplines within global mobility. I'm going to ask you kind of a two-part question. One, why do you think that it hasn't been maybe elevated to the level of some of the other aspects of in a global mobility program and made kind of, as we see the core flex becoming the trend, made part of the core offerings more often?
Is that the first part or the
That's the
second
first part. I don't want to overwhelm you with two parts. I'm not giving you the whole thing.
Okay. Because I think that we're doing underrated. It's underrated. It is underrated because it can definitely determine success or failure of the move, of the relocation, or maybe of the assignment. But it is not something that's top of mind for many mobility, let's call them decision makers. With the United States, United States tend to be very insular, and they're not necessarily thinking about people from other cultures that may or may not struggle with not even the setting up part of the relocation that we've already talked about, but the cultural pieces or the language pieces. When you talk about Europe and Asia, I don't have as much experience with, but with Europe, because the distances are a lot smaller and people tend to be multilingual anyway, that would be the other answer, maybe not as big of a deal. I give you my middle brother as an example. He has his own business. He sells solutions for trade shows with the booths and all that. He can do business in German, Swiss German, English, French, and Brazilian Portuguese. And that's just a businessman, small to middle business.
Yeah.
That's just the way things are in Europe, and particularly in a country like Switzerland, where you have 4 official national languages to begin with.
Okay. All right. Cool. Makes sense. So there's a bit of we're a little U.S. centric in our approach, and probably devalue potentially the expat experience. Okay, great answer to my first question here. And hit that like button, get in the comments. I want to know if you agree or disagree. Now I'm going to ask you to put on your kind of consulting hat, Christian. All right, you're going to now consult with a program who has culture and language in their program to some extent, but it's not really elevated to the level maybe that you think it should be. But they're also under budget constraints. How would you consult them to maybe reprioritize that? And what would you maybe cut, or how would you engineer it so that they could afford it?
Yeah, I would. So let's assume there is enough money there for cross-cultural or language training, but not both. Okay. So what I would go for the cross-cultural training. I would say, okay, let's spend the money here. With regards to the language training, there are cheap, if not free, Duolingo comes to mind, solutions in place that you can use to get started. Is that as good as a language teacher, as Christian standing in front of a class with a blackboard and German grammar? No, it's not. But can that get you started for cheap? Yes, it can. So that's how I would structure it.
I like that idea. Can a cultural coach or trainer also guide you through a self-directed language program? Like if they, like say you have a Duolingo, let's just use that example because you used it. So that there's still some accountability there, and maybe there's still an opportunity to perhaps even practice that as you're getting your cultural training with them.
Yeah. If I were the cultural trainer, and I've never done this, but that's how I would do it, I would talk about the differences in culture and tie them to language, to expressions, to, for instance, think about time, right? Everybody who's been through cross-cultural training knows that how important time is when you compare, my understanding of time and being punctual and somebody else's where it's not as important. So why not talk about time? Why not talk about, maybe a few expressions like tomorrow, yesterday, and soon, and things like that. This is the kind of stuff that I came up with when I taught expats in Switzerland, because of course I had no idea what I was doing. I was just a language teacher, but they were saying things like, oh my gosh, these Swiss supermarkets are so overwhelming. And I would say, you know what? We have 35 minutes. There's a supermarket down the street. I'll take you. And we would go in and I would say, here's meat. All right, this is pork. This is beef. And because it's Switzerland, this is horse meat. You don't want to eat that if you're American because it's disgusting. That kind of thing helped them. And it was destination services. I just didn't know that at the time.
I love that example, and the story is great. I think sometimes we talk about things and telling stories just illustrates it so much better. What's so overwhelming about a Swiss supermarket?
So the Swiss supermarkets are very, compared to US and then Texas in particular, they're very cramped. I don't know whether you have Trader Joe's in Dallas, but that's kind of more of the model.
Okay.
It's cramped. They don't have a whole lot of variety of things. They have maybe 2 brands of yogurt and not 30. Because particularly in Switzerland, in Europe in general, but particularly in Switzerland, real estate is very, very expensive because land is precious, because these stupid Alps are in the way and take up all the land. So everything is very compact. And what that comes down to is that there will be 2 kinds of yogurt, and either you like them or you don't. If you don't, then go to another store.
Right. Okay. All right. Very good. I like it. And my last question here, and then I want to get to the comments here. Get in the comments. I want to hear your questions, your comments. Shout out to Dad in the comments. Hey, what's up, Dad? Olivia.
You always read my stuff. I appreciate it very much.
You're very welcome. I think that's. I want to take a pause on that. I appreciate you saying that. Oh, my dad reads the stuff too?
Yeah, my dad reads my stuff too.
Oh. Yeah, dads are great like that.
Thank you for your reading my stuff too.
Well, I think it's important though, if we're gonna do these things, if people are gonna show up to watch us, we also have to show up for them too, right? And we have to acknowledge them in the comments, honor them in the comments. I think it's one of the big misses of webinars and things in general, and podcasts even, is that we don't get a chance to interact with the audience.
Right.
So get in the comments here. But I'm gonna ask you last thing. You said something about soon. You said yesterday, tomorrow, today. You said soon. Does soon have a different definition linguistically or culturally in Switzerland, Germany, the U.S.?
I would say this is a very difficult question to just come out of left field, but my hunch would be in Switzerland, with this emphasis, particularly German Swiss, of which I am half one, all right, this emphasis of being reliable and punctual and true to your word. When you say soon, it's not, whenever I get to it, or it may or may not happen. It means within a reasonably acceptable time. This is going to happen because everybody has to be, punctual by the book. Switzerland is a very rule-oriented country.
Okay. All right. What is not soon?
Not soon would be, well, we talked about life expectancy earlier, right?
Okay.
Not soon is when the Smurfs come back.
Gotcha.
How about that?
All right, sounds good. James Fitzgerald enjoys the question. Thank you. Get in the comments here. I want to hear what you're thinking. Dan Cross, what's up, Dad? Says mortgage underwriting is governed by federal regulations for government-insured loans. But aren't most loans government-insured? And non-Fed insured underwriters have huge difference. Who's a non-Fed insured underwriter? Is that like Joey Bag of Donuts around the block? Like, I don't even know if I want to take a loan from a non. What's he going to use as collateral? My kneecaps? I don't even know if I want that, Dad. My dad's always getting me in sticky situations. Olivia says, Ben, you're so right on the self-employed challenges. We're treated quite differently from employed individuals and feels as though we need to sell ourselves twice as hard to get loans. Olivia, had you had a chance, have you gotten a loan since you've been self-employed? Really curious. I just got a line of credit recently.
Good.
Thank you. Yeah, probably 4 years. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 years into my business, I got a line of credit. That was really cool. So,
Did you have to eat ramen a lot to build up your business?
no, I mean, I do like ramen, but not cup of noodles ramen. No, I was very, very lucky. I got some really good advice early on in my entrepreneurship journey. I got some mentorship actually from a guy that was younger than me, but he started his journey earlier than I did, and I worked with him, and he gave me two really good pieces of advice. The first one was start your business while you still have a job.
Yeah.
Even though I didn't want to, because I wanted to start my business because I hated my job and I couldn't wait to quit my job. And me starting a business was me saying I quit my job. And you feel like you're cheating on your job if you're running your business and all these other things. He's like, you know what? But don't. He's like, they only get X amount of hours a day from you. The rest you can use the way you want to use it. And they'll fire you in a heartbeat, so you might as well, not feel emotional about it. It's just business, right? So that helped me, and he was 100% right, because I started my business in June, and I quit in December, and those 6 months that I had, allowed me to stack about $55,000, which helped to seed my business. So that was one thing that, shout out to Sunny Singh, CEO of, he's CEO of a company himself, and he's a phenomenal person. Anyway, so that was great. Second thing he taught me was, he's like, when you go to the bank and you want to get a loan, he's like, go to all the banks you can go to look for the loan, and then go to more banks.
Yeah.
Because those banks will start to tell you, yeah, we can get this approved. Yeah, and those people are just salespeople. They're not underwriters. And then the underwriters who have no imagination, no personality, and will probably lose their left hand if a loan defaults. Yeah. Those people are going to kibosh you later in the process.
Yeah.
He's like, so go to 1 million banks and then go to some more. And I haven't actually had to borrow money per se, so I haven't had that situation. But when I was looking at buying some businesses in the past, that experience did ring true. Even when I felt like I was getting traction, it would get shot down later in the process. So those are a couple things. But no, I didn't have to eat ramen because I stacked my money when I was still employed. I did that. And the second thing I did too, to make sure that I didn't have to eat ramen, because I had a big house. I had a family of 2 kids, 2 cars, like all the things, all the expenses. And I didn't want to my wife was supportive of me doing this, but she didn't necessarily sign up for a step back in lifestyle.
Right.
And so the other thing I did was I signed my 2 clients before I quit. So I signed, I said, I'm making X. Can you pay me half? And can you pay me half if I go with, if I do this full time? And one said, yes, I can pay that. And the other said, no, but I can pay this. And I was like, good enough. And I knew, and so I quit my job on December 16th, right when it was ramped up to full strength. So I had my 2 clients, I had my cash flow, I had my floor in place, I had stacked a nest egg for myself as well, and it was really hard because I didn't want to do it.
Yeah. Because
I think a lot of times the reason we quit our jobs and we go off on our own is there's an element of pride there and hubris there, to be honest with you. But I sucked it up and I did it that way, and I was happy I did it.
Excellent. Well, I'm glad to hear that. For me, the quitting the job ship has sailed, but it doesn't matter because I have this, just like you have, my wife's support.
That's everything. It means so much.
Everything. And, I am working part-time right now. I'm working on AI projects. It's now the second one that I'm working on. And
interesting.
I wanted to learn that, and I got an opportunity, and it's fun because it has nothing to do with mobility. It's all about my long ago degree in linguistics and English literature. So I'm writing and answering linguistics and English literature questions.
Oh, very cool.
That GPT then gets wrong.
Nice. I studied English in college, so that was, which is funny. Yeah, because I dated some immigrants, and I'd go meet their parents, and they're like, "So what do you study?" They're expecting computer science or finance or something like law or something like. And I told them English, and they looked at me like I was crazy. Like, you already speak English. We don't speak English. Why are you studying English? And so
Yeah,
that was always fun. But
yeah, I get that.
I like the background.
I think it's a great background for mobility in so many different ways. And, being able to write well is
Hmm.
a
Oh
very
yeah.
underrated, again, very underrated skill in mobility. Being able to edit, for instance, think of, what Olivia does, RFPs. I've edited RFPs. I mean, it's so important.
Nice.
There you go. So it's already
There's
three of
not.
us, if not more.
Now, not. Are you saying you majored in it, or are you just saying you studied it like you took a class? I feel like not. Sometimes you never know. Now might be poking fun at me here.
You just got a
Not
smiley face there.
put it in there. Nicole really says, "Love that question." ASAP doesn't always mean the same to everyone. Yes, for sure. Get in the comments, y'all. Um, oh,
In
in Montreal.
Montreux, well, it's a beautiful place. So Montreux, for those of you that don't know, it's on Lake Geneva. It's where the jazz festival is, still is, has been for a long time every year. And if you know the song Smoke on the Water, that's about the casino in Montreux where the jazz festival is held burning down,
Oh
which
no, I
happened.
didn't know that.
Well, listen to it. And we all came down to Montreux. They're telling you a story about what happened.
I was just listening to that song too, not long, like last week,
Look
and
it up and listen to it. It's early
wow,
70s. I don't remember. Maybe 72 that it burnt down.
wow. Olivia says so true. Christian communicating writing
Thanks,
skills are so
Olivia.
underrated. So, Christian, tell us a little bit. I like what you said before. You said, "I'm not looking for a job. I'm looking for work."
Hmm.
So, what type of work do you love? What do you see as your highest and best value?
I think it's sharing my expertise. Um, as I mentioned, I've done quite a lot of teaching, and that's still very much within me. It's important to me teaching, coaching, mentoring. And I would love to be able to share my expertise, be it in strategic talent management, designing a mobility program, writing policies, which would be part of that, but not all of it. Figuring out how best to take a company's vision of what they want to do with their talent, how they want to move their talent, and then put that into something, a framework that is absolutely doable and that has been tested against the typical obstacles and issues that you will encounter.
Hmm.
One of them being not having enough money. That's kind of the question you asked me about cross-cultural language, right? So that would be exactly one of the questions I would encounter. I would ask you, how much money do you have? And you would give me a number. And then I would say, all right, I think the best use of this money, considering you want these people to come and be productive, is cross-cultural training in this example. And then we would introduce them to Duolingo, Rosetta Stone, places where they can get started learning a language.
Yeah, it's really interesting as you're talking about this. I'm envisioning a process that's less like a set of benefits that the company gives to relocating employees, but more like approaching it from a business case standpoint, which is to say, what are the strategic
Yes,
what are the strategic objectives of this assignment, and
yes,
what are the gaps that we have in
yes,
this human resource right here in this person, and how do we get this person from A to B whole and plus and
right.
ready to do the job.
The other part of that, though, is that it has to be equitable. So
Hmm.
you start out with what you just said, but then you have to make sure that it's not completely unreasonably unfair to some people. And that's where people like me would come in and say, okay, if you want this to happen with most people because that's going to give you the best bang for your buck. You have to make sure that these other people also can get these benefits or can make use of these benefits. You can work with miscellaneous allowances. You can, of course, work with Core Flex. Core Flex would be one of the answers to bridge what you said to what I just said, right?
Yeah.
Make it equitable.
So, a couple thoughts. As I started my consulting journey in 2020,
Hmm.
one of the things that I learned actually through interviewing people on the show, through interviewing small business owners on the immigration and DSP side in Europe, ironically, was was that they really invested a lot of time in crafting their client personas.
Hmm.
And these client personas, for those of you who don't know what this is about, is kind of a list of attributes or characteristics that an ideal client would have. So for me, when I started Glomo Consulting, we started as a consultancy for global mobility service provider companies that were either woman-owned or minority-owned, had been in business 3 to 5 years, were operationally excellent, were somewhat kind of what we call best-kept secrets,
Hmm.
had product-market fit. We were dealing with the CEO or the founder. We felt like we could help them. They could afford us. There was there was like about a dozen characteristics. And that really niched it down quite a bit for us, which was fine because it was just me at the beginning, and then it was Jana, so we were two. But
Yeah.
four clients got us to almost $500,000 in revenue, and so there wasn't a harm in niching down. I think a lot of people think about niching down as that you're excluding so much opportunity, right? But I think it's also means that you can speak to your highest and best
Yeah.
application with that client, and therefore extract as much value, because the amount of value we can extract from a client engagement is proportionate to the amount of value that we impute.
Sure.
And so in order for us to extract the most, we have to impute the most. And so I had to think to myself and say, well, where am I most valuable? And so that was just a little process that we went through that was really
It
valuable.
also makes what you just said makes it scalable.
Mm.
It has to be scalable. And I wouldn't
Yeah.
have a problem being too niche at the beginning as long as you have enough demand, like you just said. And
Yeah.
then later on, you can add on. You can say, I can also take on these types of clients because I have X, Y, and Z people that
Mm-hmm.
can now handle that for me.
Precisely, and you're right about scalability, because with healthy margins comes scale. A lot of people
Yeah,
don't have the margins to begin with, so they
yeah,
can't scale later,
yeah.
even though they need to, because they have too much work. It's just not high quality enough work. That you're so spot on. We were able to scale to some degree when we launched the recruiting side of the business,
Mhm.
because it was a new product line, and with that new product line recruiting that wasn't consulting, but with the new product line recruiting, now now we had a different client persona, and that client
Right,
persona was a much wider net as well.
right, right. And then
Yeah.
you can start cross-selling, right?
Oh,
Ideally.
precisely. We have
Yeah.
clients that will use us for our consulting, and will use us for our, will use us for our recruiting. We'll also use us for the mergers and acquisitions advisement that we do. We'll also use us for video production, and that's really a beautiful thing.
You're
Uh,
on your way to becoming a mogul.
no, I'm just trying to get this mortgage paid down. Okay, I'm just trying to own some real estate in OC
I
maybe
watched the show
one
with the
day.
house, so I know
Yeah,
what you're up against.
exactly. Thank you, Nicole Perilli. Is commenting. Get in the comments there. We're getting here to the end. It's overrated, underrated time. Richard says, "Gutted. I missed most of the show. I will watch the recording. Just finished
Richard,
working."
thank you.
Richard, you got here in time for overrated, underrated. Don't
Yeah,
worry. What's up, London town in the house? So now we've got London. So now we've got Brazil, we've got Canada, we've got the UK, we've got the US right now watching. This is fantastic. Nicole
Germany,
says,
Switzerland.
"Yeah, there we go." Shout out to the German Swiss out there. Nicole saying, "I think in global mobility we often forget it's about skills, people development. It's just not how we get them there."
Right.
Yeah,
If
great
you want it
reminder.
to be sustainable and long term, that's exactly what I would tell you.
It's great advice. All right, Christian, you want to have some fun? Let's play a game.
Sure.
All right, here we go. We're going to get into overrated, underrated. Christian, do you know how this game is played?
I want you to explain it just because I love listening to you explaining it.
Okay. It seems intuitive, but it's not. There's a catch. There's only two rules. One, I will tell you a topic, and you will tell me if it is either overrated or underrated. These are only two options. Don't deviate. Don't get cute. Got it?
Got it.
The second is I will tell you if you are right.
Okay.
All right, here we go. And feel free to get in the comments and let us know if Christian's crazy, if Ben's crazy, or both. Those are your options. Okay, let's get into it. The first one up is corporate mobility ROI. Overrated or underrated?
Highly underrated. Corporate mobility ROI is something that should be explored on a deeper level by more people. And I know that you had Professor Benjamin Bader in the show not too long ago, who I've gotten to know and, virtually and talk to quite regularly. That's one of his big fields, academic fields of research, to actually quantify that. So I think we need more voices like this to just show the budget cutters that there's another way to look at this stuff.
Did you know a fun fact, actually? More people have visited the moon than have discovered how to calculate corporate mobility ROI. I believe, in theory, this is an excellent endeavor. It is just so damn hard to wrap our arms around. What makes it particularly difficult, do you think?
Well, there's a lot of variables. For one, there's a lot of uncertainty. The way I would start to approach it, and I've discussed this with Ben, is risk. What would it cost you if things go wrong? Because that's a good way to work backwards into it and say, if we're just putting these things in place, like for instance, we're paying $1,000 for destination services, because you had this person and you had the CFO who didn't know how to get their rabbit kenneled, and you had this person who didn't know how to get a driver's license for their kid, and all the time and money that costs us because these people are running around trying to figure this out instead of working for us. You can kind of back into it that way. And then you can do, if you want to, the full-on academic approach with big surveys, which is what Benjamin and his colleagues do, and say you have a massive company that moves thousands of people a year, and you survey them, and then you also get quite a lot of data that you could use. So those would be my two answers as somebody who's kind of looking at this from the outside, just learned about it, but that's how I would do it.
All right, underrated. All right, you know what? I'm going to give credit for this one. It is underrated. It's damn near impossible, but it is underrated. I would love to see this proven. I sense it. I actually had somebody I work for a CEO. She said, Ben, I wish you would stop being so focused on the numbers. I said, that's crazy talk. My whole career, I was told I wasn't focused on the data enough, and I need to be more data oriented. And she says, Ben, I've been doing this for 50 years. When I walk through the hallways, I know if we're making money. I know if we're doing a good job. I know if we're taking care of customers. I know the feeling in my bones. I don't need to know it here because I know it everywhere else. And I feel like all of us know it all up in here. We just really have a trouble making the numbers work because we don't have all the data. We don't know. We don't know if you could tell me as an employer what the ROI on that employee was cleanly, I could give you the ROI on the mobility assignment, but you can't even tell me how much that accountant is worth to you. You know, so I mean, it's just a thing that I struggle with. I would love to be able to prove it out, because then all of a sudden this whole thing becomes a profit center of sorts and not a cost center.
Right, but you're dealing with people, and that already makes it hard. You're not dealing with light bulbs and a certain amount of light bulbs that are badly shaped or whatever.
Yeah, that's why I worry. I worry that it's a flawed premise, though, too, right? The ROI, the return on investment, right? I mean, maybe it's not even the proper
I don't
frame.
think it's flawed. I think it's not perfect. To me, that's a difference. I don't think it's something that you should reject, but it's something you should accept as being imperfect. My example would be insurance. You have underwriting tables, but they're assumptions, right? If you think of Florida and flood insurance, that tells you, right? These people thought they had it all figured out, what the numbers were.
Yeah, fine. Yeah, Fine example. All right, let's keep it moving here. Next one up. AI, artificial intelligence, overrated or underrated?
I think a lot of the talk is overrated. I think artificial intelligence as it is today is partially overrated. And the reason why I can say that is because I'm working with it right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I can see what kind of garbage you can get if you don't, well, first of all, write the prompt properly, but then also because it relies on sources. And my training, my academic training, also as a historian, tells me that you always have to go back to the sources and you have to apply critical thinking. AI doesn't do that because AI's purpose is to synthesize, throw a lot of information together faster than any human being could. But, it's garbage in, garbage out sometimes.
Yeah, we almost kind of prioritize speed over accuracy when we rely on AI.
Which is, you can read that several different ways. You can say, well, if it's not entirely accurate, that's fine. Most applications, no big deal. But if it's totally wrong, and I've seen the model hallucinate, making up sources that don't exist, then it gets scary real fast.
Yeah, that is scary, right? When it starts lying to us, right? When the computers start lying.
That's exactly right.
But people have been lying for millennia.
Well, do we need machines to do it on top of us?
Yes. Yeah.
Critical thinking again, people.
Yeah, I do agree. I think it is overrated. It's funny when I look through these AI headshots on LinkedIn, or I look through these AI, all this artwork. I see people using AI for comments now on LinkedIn, and none of it is. It's not bad. It's just not good. It's like,
right.
Yeah, you did it. I mean, even it can make someone look really beautiful, even, but at some point you're going to be disappointed. And it's like, and then at what point do I have an ethical responsibility to show you how something really is, not how,
exactly.
and not to embellish, because when we embellish things in real life, that's lying. But when we embellish them photographically or, I don't know.
It gets really dicey when you look at, for instance, historical documents. In school, I learned that Stalin would have people that he had killed. He would just have them taken out of pictures at the time, right? So you would paint over them literally, or replace heads or things like that, to alter a picture, to reflect the new view of whatever the view of the government was at the time. That kind of stuff, which you can now do with AI really cheaply and easily, is super scary.
Wow, that is scary. All right, overrated. Let's go. 2 points for Christian here. Next one up. LTD, okay. Limited, overrated, underrated.
So limited is so overrated. And that is to me, that is another little cultural thing that Americans in particular are so fond of. Cars, again, all these limited cars. In what way are they limited? Nobody's saying we stop making them. It's a trim level, It's just a cheap way to make the customer feel more special than they really are, because they are not just buying a base model, they're buying a limited. And so now they're part of this elite club of people. And other people can't get into the club because they can't buy a limited anymore.
This limited edition exclusive offers, things like this. I mean, I think the inferred thing here is that this is going to go up in value or something, or be more valuable in the future than this other thing was, because you got in on it in the beginning before it sold out. And
it's at least prestigious, right? It's at least more prestigious than if you're doing the not limited, unlimited thing. And it's, you have chips in the supermarket. They come with weird flavors, and you think, who on earth thought of that? The Cuban sandwich chips. They're limited. Why they're limited? Well, because if nobody buys them, they're gross, then they're going to stop making them.
They're limited because we're just not sure.
They're testing them out. They should just say, hey, the guinea pig edition, but that wouldn't sell.
Yeah, that wouldn't sell very well, would it? Shout out to Nicole who sent me some limited edition chips from Thailand, as well as some other treats. That was awesome. Let's see, Richard coming in here. You're going to have to read this for me, Christian. What is Richard saying here?
Grüezi zusammen. Yeah, it's Grüezi miteinander. Is zusammen is Standard German. Miteinander is Swiss German, and Grüezi is hello, the standard greeting, a good day that you use in German-speaking Switzerland.
Nice. Well, thank you for translating. All right, overrated. Next one up. The unusual. I have a particular fondness for this.
Yeah, so I think the unusual is highly underrated. And as you may have guessed, I love the quirky, I love the unusual, I love the things that aren't necessarily what everybody else does or the mainstream. And I do believe in mobility. That's what you have to deal with every day, because you are dealing with people and you are also dealing with a product or service that is highly customized. Yes, there's a policy, and yes, the steps may be the same, but it's no relocation is exactly like the other. And if you know that there will be room for people with 20 fish tanks or lizards. I moved a parrot to Germany and back, including parrot food. That's the quirky that I had in mind.
But how do we balance the unusual and inclusiveness around that with the equity portion of a policy?
You would take examples from what happened and you try to incorporate them so that they're equitable. Example, if you have a pet shipment benefit in your policy, it doesn't matter whether you're looking at a parrot or a lizard or fish tanks, but you may cap them, right? You may say it's equitable because it's capped. No matter what animal you're shipping, it's capped at $1,000 or $2,000. That's what I was referring to earlier. You take the need, but you make it equitable by combining it with a limit or a boundary or a framework.
But now I'm going to be a pain in the ass. But now if I have a horse and that's my pet, my horse isn't going for $1,000.
No, it's my horse, a kingdom for a horse. It's going for a kingdom. Sorry, English major joke.
But I mean, so is it more equitable to put a cap on it of $1,000 so everyone gets the same amount to spend, or is it equitable to say everyone gets one pet?
If you're so rich that you can afford to keep a horse, you can well pay for your own pet relocation minus $1,000.
So equity and inclusion does not include the rich.
No. There are certain limits. Equity means equal, right? So there's some, but maybe you have a high level person and they have, as we all know, they have different rules and maybe they get horsey shipped. But in my team, there was one horse shipment and it was water. It was so expensive, particularly in comparison to the household goods shipment. It was nuts. And I also thought, poor animal, is it really necessary to do that? Sometimes it's more about the status symbol of the horse than the horse itself.
Yeah, I can understand that. All right. Yes, the unusual is underrated. Let's keep it funky. Last one up here. Detail. Overrated, underrated.
Detail is highly underrated. And, what can I tell you? I'm a German-Swiss guy, detail-oriented by culture. But I learned that in mobility, the devil is truly in the details. And I always told my team, you have to make sure that you understand your timeline, because one of the details that you might be missing is that your transferee doesn't know where to go once they arrive in the destination. You have to know, you have to think for them, and you have to know what they're going to do when they arrive at the airport. What will be the next step? And it's that level of detail that I've always talked about, that I've tried to coach people in adopting, and not just to say it'll work out, because chances are it won't.
Yeah, detail is interesting. I'm obsessed about some details, and I gloss over a lot of others, and I don't know why. It probably drives my team crazy, but there's some things I obsess about.
Probably have a certain amount of bandwidth with all the stuff that you're doing, and you have to just make sure that you don't get completely overloaded.
Yeah.
So yeah, you have to prioritize. You have to, if you're dealing with an escalation, you may not be able to go into the details, and that is fine. You're triaging just like an emergency room would, and then you get into the details later to find out what happened, how can we fix it, how can we make sure it doesn't happen again. That kind of thing requires a very detailed approach, but there is always time for details, and then there's time where you just move forward.
I remember having to do my root cause analysis worksheets and go dig into the defect tracker that I used to have to fill out weekly for one particular client that was exacting with these things.
Yeah.
And so when I would apply myself, I'd get very into the detail, and I thought I actually did a pretty nice job with my English major filling in those Excel documents. And I think details are important, and understanding the root cause and the 5 whys and all that kind of stuff of why stuff goes wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But man, it's hard. It's hard to do a lot when you focus on the minute.
The approach that I've often taken is, again, risk management, mitigating risk. You want to look at risk. What if this goes wrong? What does that mean in terms of fallout, in terms of financial loss? So that's definitely one of the approaches you can take to look at, if this goes wrong, how much is it going to cost us? Then you will find out what kind of level of detail you need. And it may not be that you need to figure out every single thing, because if the risk is not there, then maybe it's not as important.
Yeah, love it. Great place to land that plane. Detail, underrated, love it. Christian Ter-Nedden, this has been a lot of fun.
Thank you.
I know we've taken a lot of time up here. Thanks to everybody that got into the comments. It was wonderful having you here. Christian, why don't you close us out with a final thought?
Well, I just want to thank you, Ben, personally, and I want to thank the mobility community. I've started commenting on LinkedIn, and it wasn't that long ago. In April, I looked it up. In April, I had about 400 followers and 400 impressions, and now I have 23,000.
Wow.
So to me, that's a sign of how many people are really supportive and want to share and want us to be all so that all of us are in a better place ultimately as an industry, and that is wonderful, and I really love that very much about our industry.
Yeah, it's pretty. Yeah, that's well said, Christian. I'm glad you're having that success, and it definitely comes from you putting in all the work and investing in the community, and it will.
If there's nobody coming back or listening or reading it like your dad is, then it's not right.
Yeah, for sure. And also, I have to give a plug on Thursday this week. We are doing the last Thursday of Hunger Action Month. We are doing a global mobility Price is Right competition. We're doing the Price is Right here. We're having a game show on the show right here on Thursday, 3 o'clock Central, 4 o'clock Eastern. It's going to be amazing. You got to tune in for that. We're raising money to ease hunger, food insecurity, and hunger in our area, in our communities. So please join us for that. We've already raised, $12,000, $13,000, $14,000 probably at this point. Wow. Yeah, so having a lot of fun with that. Christian, will I see you logging on Thursday?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome, sounds good. So everyone connect with Christian Ter-Nedden. Great follow on LinkedIn. And Christian, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you all again for having me. Thank you, Ben. This was so much fun. I appreciate it.